Lifeboat Live, we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you are on the lifeboat. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Lifeboat Live here on YouTube, everybody's favorite format. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville. On the other side of the glass is my bobble-headed partner, Mark Wages, and we are happy that you have joined us. Last night I bailed a little early, people, and I apologize. Yesterday, I think I told everybody the night before, we had a windstorm that was epic, right? I moved here 21 years ago, give or take. And obviously I took a little time off, right? Where I toured the country on Uncle Sam's dime. But this has been my address for, all of those 21 years. And during that time, I've seen some pretty vicious windstorms. It's something that happens a lot in northern Nevada, but I've never seen anything like 2 nights ago. It blew the power out, and it would have had to have been like a high tension line because the neighborhoods that around here don't have power lines. They were all buried, the day that they laid the houses and the foundations and such. So it was just absolutely brutal. And if you have trouble breathing, windstorms like that are awful because they stir up dust and they stir up pollen and they stir up just every single thing that you can think of that's not great gets pumped up into the air. And then on top of that, I did a little work on a sewing machine yesterday and took it apart, and it had never been cleaned. I don't know if you've ever been inside, the back of a sewing machine, but fuzz and things of that nature that come off of clothing and threads and things just completely end up getting caked in the back, and all of this stuff ends up in your lungs, and the office basically became radioactive. So I was having some struggle breathing yesterday, but I got an email from my mom who was having real struggle breathing, and I love what I do, but not enough to continue but she's doing well, and it's all good. So I wanted to talk tonight. First of all, let me back up. So today I got up and I needed to attack this room. It was basically, like I said, it was radioactive. Everything in here, if you touched it, it kicked up dust, and I ended up breathing all of this stuff in. And so I wiped everything down. I put a machine in here that creates ions, positively charged ions, and puts them out into the air and then sucks things in. It's a really excellent purifier. And about every 4 days, you have to clean it. You got to wipe it down. And these three little sort of metal rods, except they're flat, but they slide in there and they get coated with crap. And the machine starts to make like a popping and cracking sound. Well, in about 2 hours, the machine had to be cleaned. And about 2 hours later, the machine had to be cleaned again. And it's just been really getting the room clean. This morning, I tried to do some stuff in here and I was right back to the same place. I've got a little fresh air coming in right now, so I'm hoping that we're going to be in good shape. But wanted to get out of the house today because of the the lung thing. So I did what I do, right? I've shared this with you people in the past that one of my favorite pastimes and hobbies is I go out and I hit thrift stores. For those of you in Australia, I think you call them op stores or OP stores because like an opportunity or whatever, but secondhand stores. And very often in this part of the country, they're attached to charities. So you show up and you donate 5 boxes full of stuff and they give you a little receipt that you can write off on your taxes and that kind of a thing. But if you've never been in anything like that, any kind of a store like that, it's absolutely amazing. And it'll get you thinking about the things that people throw away. I'm walking around and I'm looking at clothing and I'm looking at things and there's tons and tons of stuff in there with tags on it. Like people bought stuff, brought it home, either put it on a hanger or did whatever. And then at some point thought, you know what? I don't know why I bought that. I'm just going to throw it out. And the old adage that, one man's trash is another man's treasure. If you've ever seen shows like American Pickers, that really, really popular shows where people go out and they hunt for things that, for the most part, people throw away. And there is an awful lot of value in things that people toss. A numismatist. I'm not sure if you have heard that term before, but a numismatist is somebody that collects money. And I don't mean as in they've got a lot of cash in the bank. They collect coinage and old bills and things of that nature. And it's a fascinating pastime, for the people who do it, because there are so many coins that are worth staggering amounts of money that are sitting in places like Coinstars all over the country, that are sitting in jars that people filled coins with, that end up getting donated to charity or get, basically just sit there. There are pennies, copper pennies currently in the United States that are in circulation. I'm not talking about things that have, disappeared a long time ago. I'm talking about things that are currently in circulation that people are spending that are worth millions of dollars. When is the last time you looked at a penny? Honestly, when's the last time you read a date on a penny? It's worthless, isn't it? I mean, every single year, there are bills in this country to eliminate them. We don't even want the penny as part of our currency anymore. And to be really honest, the only reason that we still have it is because most citizens don't want taxes to get raised by 3 cents so they can justify getting rid of the penny. But in most states, you're looking at sales taxes of about 7%. And because of that, we're going to need a couple of pennies so that if somebody goes in and buys something for $1, they can then give you a nickel and a couple of copper pennies, or of course, they're no longer copper. But it got me thinking about this stuff. And there is a 1943 D-type penny, right? It's made of bronze. In 43, we ran into a problem in the United States. We were at war. And copper had a very serious use, right? They were using it for military reasons. At that time, they were actually making casings on bullets out of it, mixing that with other metals, but they needed a ton of copper. So they started to strike pennies out of steel. When that didn't work, they started to strike them out of bronze. But during that 43 to 45, pennies were made of a whole bunch of different stuff. And to this day, people get these things and spend them. Not so much the steel ones, because they really stick out. Back in the day, they called them steelies. And these were one of those things that when you look at it, it doesn't really look like a penny. It's the right size and shape, but obviously the coloration is wrong. However, if it was struck in bronze or one of the other metals that they were using, there's really no way to tell the difference between that and a regular penny. However, one just recently sold for $2.7 million at auction. They're not particularly rare. I mean, they're rare now because so many people have them in collections, but it's not like they made 50 of them. These things were cranked out. There's another one that more people know about, which is the VDB penny. And there's a famous story attached to this because there was a gentleman who was smuggling money from one country to another. And he was doing it by carrying about 15 of these in his pocket at any given time. So he would purchase these things and he would then bring them to Switzerland and he would convert them. And they're $100,000 a piece. Guy walking with 15 pennies in his pocket at $1.5 million worth of. And I know this all sounds like, what the heck has this got to do with sobriety? But it gets you thinking about the value that things have and how things are perceived. The reason that those pennies don't get a second look is because society thinks they're worthless. It's very much like people with addiction problems. Society looks at us like pennies. Honestly, we're worthless. I mean, yeah, at one time there was the potential there. But it gets to the point where society believes we're throwaways. And I think what makes the lifeboat so unusual is that it's almost a group of people like the ones you see at these thrift stores who are hunting and looking for specific items because they may not know this, but they know that. Like there was a guy in there today that I was watching who was buying anything that said Levi's on it. And I guarantee you that this man has got a website that sells Levi's jeans, used ones, but he was in there and they were selling them at $7 a pop, and he was buying every single one of them that he could get his hands on. Not today, that one was yesterday, but because I do this often. Today I was going to a different one. This was tied to a Catholic charity, but I go to a lot of them. And you know what, people, what I'm looking for is watches. When I go in there, I'm hunting down watches. And truth be told, what I'm looking for to most people looks like garbage, looks like trash. If you look at a shiny Rolex watch, most people go, hey, that thing looks like it's worth some money. But you look at vintage watches, people today, this was there. I don't know if you can get a good look at that, but it's an old watch, right? And when I saw it in the case, I said, hey, is there any chance I could get a look at that? Sorry, people. That one was not the cat. That was me. I said, can I get a look at that watch? And they opened the case, and when they put it out, these watches are mechanical. They don't have batteries. I wanted to wind it, because in doing so, I could tell you if it works. They don't let you do that. And again, this is a great illustration because when we see people come on the boat, we find ourselves wondering whether or not these people are real or not. Just like you start to wonder whether or not the watch I'm looking at is something that's going to have any value. And they had a price on the watch, which was a little bit more than I wanted to spend. When I tried to negotiate, they said there was no negotiation on this watch. And I know watches. This particular one could have been made out of what they call base metal. And back in 1926, when this watch was manufactured, the base metal was tin. And the watch would have been worth about what they were asking for it. Maybe a little bit more, not much, especially if it wasn't working. So what I had to do was take a chance, right? Like we do every single time somebody comes on the boat. We take a chance on people. And sometimes it works out. Sometimes we find people and they have souls that are 14 karat gold. And they have hearts that are like nobody else. People comment all the time on just how kind the people on the lifeboat are. You know what? We've gotten some base metal on the lifeboat before. It happens. It is one of those things that no matter how hard you try to guard yourself against that, you're going to come across some things that don't always work out. And it's the nature of what we do. And it is the nature of recovery. I mean, if we look at the statistics, they're not good. If you take opiates, for instance, the statistics most recently, now this was before medical assisted therapy, which is really changing some of the numbers. But prior to that, they were saying 99 out of 100 women who get addicted to opiates are going to die still using them. For men, it is 98 out of 100. So you're twice as likely to continue to use as a woman than you are a man. But those are horrendous statistics. And it makes somebody, wonder why people take a chance on anyone like that, right? Why would you take a chance on someone knowing that 98 out of 100 times, they're just going to break your heart? They're going to not come through. They're going to end up right back in the life and the time and effort that you put into them, because you keep looking for the diamond in the rough. And I continue to go to store after store after store, and I look at crap that has batteries in them and that were mass produced, that have price tags on them for $6.50. And to be really honest with you, they're probably not worth that. And it's just like what we do. The difference is that no matter how much of a value you find at a place like that, it's nothing compared to what happens when we find somebody worth saving. When we find somebody that can get out of the life, right? The universe, God, whatever you believe in, sings every single time one of those people gets sober. That's a fact. I got this watch home today, and it's, the whole car ride home, I'm basically shaking, because what you're really hoping is that when you get home, the odds, the chances are it can be tin, it could be silver, which would make it worth considerably more money. It could be white gold, or it could be platinum. And believe it or not, back in the day, platinum was the cheaper of the options. It was a very inexpensive metal in the 20s. Nobody wanted to buy it because it was not considered of any value. That really didn't happen until recently. But when I got home and I took this apart, first of all, it keeps time, which is astounding, right? After 96 years, this thing is continuing to work like it did when it was first cranked out. But not only does it keep time, it's made of white gold. And the weight of this watch, thing weighs more than an ounce. And gold is trading at what, about $1,800 an ounce right now? I assure you, people, I didn't pay anywhere near that for this watch. But it gets right back to the same illustration, right? The people that we're trying to save require somebody that cares. To the rest of the world, I don't know how long this thing sat in that case. I really don't. And how many people walked by and looked at it and saw the price tag and went, boy, they're crazy. And I'm not kidding you. I could almost hear them laughing at me as I was walking out the door. Because it takes somebody to see value where somebody else doesn't. And what makes the lifeboat beautiful is that all of you see value where other people don't. It's almost like we are collectors of human beings. We find beautiful specimens that just need a little bit of restoration. We know in our heart of hearts that all of these people still work. And this thing may be 96 years old, but it still keeps time, right? It still does what it was designed to do. Yeah, you got to clean some patina off it. The before and after photos I'll put up on the lifeboat page, because once I got all of the gunk off of this, and once I cleaned this up and buffed the outside of it, it didn't look like the same thing. And that's exactly what happens with people in recovery. How many times have you looked at somebody that set a goal? Look at Alan Valentine, right? The difference between where Alan was when he started setting goals and where he is today, that man has been restored. That is a much better version of what was created, 29 years ago. All right, he might not be 29, but it's a beautiful thing, people, and this is happening every day. So I think that we need to guard ourselves against the Daniels. You come across enough base metal junk watches with batteries in them, and you get to a point where you say, you know what, I'm not going back to that store because they don't ever have anything good there. And this is what happens in society. We are that store. You understand? They look at people like us and they say, you know what? I've been there and done that. I've watched so many people just like this say they were going to get sober, say they were going to turn their life around. I invested my time and my effort into trying to help that person. You know what happens? They judge every other store, right? They judge every other addict because of what happened to them in that one experience. People, we got to guard ourselves against that. We really do. We're going to have disappointments. And what's worse is what makes what makes us unique on the lifeboat opens us up to a lot of knockoffs, right? A lot of imitations. There's really nothing worse than somebody that spends, say, $3,000 or $4,000 and thinks they bought a beautiful piece, only to find out that it's some fake that got cranked out in that country that we're not allowed to talk about because it's just one of those countries, the country that makes 85% of all fake things. Because of the fact that we do what we do on social media, we find people who aren't what they say they are. It happens all the time. You know what? We can't let that turn us into the people that say, I'm done shopping. I'm done. From this point on, all I'm going to do is go find watches that are brand new, right? That I can get with papers of authenticity. Do you realize how many people wouldn't dream of starting a friendship with people like us? Honestly, when somebody finds out, that this is the life that you're in. If you ever go over to Match.com, I haven't been there in decades, but after my first divorce, my sister-in-law at the time talked me into it and like helped put up a profile of me, and it was a nightmare, people. It was, I know for some people it works, not for me. It was a nightmare, but I was blown away as you start to go through there, right? You take your finger and you go, throw it away, throw it away, throw it away, right? You keep going to the next one. And you read a blurb that in 30 words is supposed to tell you what you need to know about someone to make a decision whether or not maybe you want to go have coffee and find out who this person is. And do you know how many times, honestly, I read nobody in recovery? Seriously. Put it straight out there. I don't want anybody in recovery. I don't want anyone who's a former drug user. I don't want anybody. And then in that, almost always in the same sentence, they would say, no drama, no ex-drug users. We're judged before we even get there, right? You could have a platinum soul, but what people are going to see is the patina, right? The stuff that kind of needs to get scrubbed away. Every day, we're here and we're scrubbing that stuff off, right? We're scrubbing off patina and we're taking things that were throwaways and we're turning them into something beautiful. And you know what, people? I can dump this watch for about 25 times what I bought for it. And the reason is I knew what I was looking for. The longer we do this on the lifeboat, the more you're going to realize when somebody shows up, you're going to go, nope. This is a knockoff. This is a fake made in that country. And I don't want anything to do with it. Or you're going to go, oh man, yeah, this thing needs help. This needs work. It might need a new band. We're going to have to buff that crystal out. Probably needs a tune up. It might not be keeping time, but you know what? It's beautiful. It's breathtaking. And it takes that eye, right? For somebody to go into one of those places. It takes that eye for somebody every time they get their change to start looking at those pennies, right? People that are on the hunt for that diamond in the rough, for that thing that is so beautiful that regardless of the damage that has been done to it, it's worthy of restoration. The same thing happens with cars. The reason that those shows are so popular on television is because you look at a car and you go, ugh, good Lord, right? It's, it's like a baby excrement color green and it's got stuff hanging off of it. The four wheels don't match. And in 30 minutes, of television. They're going to turn that thing into a showpiece, right? And they do that big unveil at the end. You know what I'm talking about? Hey, bring out that beautiful Mustang. And the door opens up and they drive out in that car. And the first thing that happens is your breath gets taken away. And then you wait for them to show you the picture of what that was before, right? So that you can look at the two and go, my God, I wouldn't have touched that thing. I wouldn't have given you $500 for that thing. Now look at it. That's us, people. You understand? That's us. Get a good look at the before and after pictures. And I'm not talking about weight loss, right? I've said this so many times, and I'm going to keep saying it. The least impressive thing about Alan Ballantyne was his weight loss. I look at Alan, he's not the same human being, right? He has a smile, he has an energy, he has a presence. That man is content. And if you go back to where he was drinking $1,000+ of beer every single month, and he didn't have $1 in the bank, there were people looking at him and saying, you know what? I don't know that that's worth restoring. There's too much drama associated with that vehicle. I can't see wanting to restore that. People, thanks to everybody who has become restoration specialists. I couldn't breathe. I was having some very serious issues this morning, and there were people in the live chat that probably needed me to be there. But Niall was there, and he was reaching out to people, and he was talking to people, and he was asking questions, and he was giving advice. The dream of this is when everybody begins to look at people the way that we all should be looking at people. Remember when I said what we wanted to do here? I said I didn't want society to look at addicts the way that they do. I wanted society to realize that we're more than a $200 a day dope habit. We're more than a criminal record. We're more than 2 divorces, 5 crash cars, and a DWI. All of those things end up becoming how society identifies and views you. The thing that makes this channel unique is that no one judges anyone here, right? Because when someone shows up here and they're hurting and they're dented and they've got Bondo and the engine doesn't turn over, people already see that, hey, bring out that beautiful Alan. Let's not let society dictate how we view one another. Let's not let society dictate how we treat one another. And let's not let any of that crap in. Honestly, there is too much counterfeit stuff. There's too much judgment in this world. And there really is nothing more beautiful than a really good restoration. And I'll tell you something, people, to wear this, right? It was honestly, this piece of history on my wrist. It's a watch, right? It's beautiful. I love it. I really do. I think I scored. This is such a great piece. And, you know, you do a little research. I found out this was sold in Europe, right, in 1926. And I was able to track the serial numbers and do all of that. It's a watch. That's all it is. It's a piece of metal. It's some gears, some springs. How much more unbelievable is it when somebody has that same kind of vision and looks at people that way and sees the beauty beneath the rust and sees the beauty beneath the patina? When people struggle to get a handle on what we do here, it's because they can't see what you see. Does that make sense? They can't see the potential that is in every single addict. There is no better story than somebody that crawls out of that muck to become their best self. And you know what? It's a really cool story, and they highlight it when that person runs for Congress or that person becomes the mayor of a city. But if that person just pays taxes, gets their own place, and gets up every morning a free individual that doesn't have to feed a habit every single day, it's just as beautiful, right? It might not be a 1946 D type penny worth $2 million, but it's shiny. It's beautiful and it's worth taking a look at. People, don't let anybody change who you are and what you're doing. And don't write off thrift stores, the real ones. I'm telling you, for I really am getting to the point where I start looking at the lifeboat. And to me, it's like a thrift store. It really is. There are so many stories. It's not just a group of a couple of thousand people. It's thousands of stories of people who are overcoming the odds because the odds suck. You know why we're having success here? Because of you all, because of how you all treat one another. It's group therapy. And every single day, you people are making the world a better place. Honestly, this earth is a better place because of the people on the lifeboat. Don't let anything change that. Mark, how are you, my brother?
I am all right. I am all right. How are you?
You know something? Honestly, today is a day that I'm doing a lot better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't want anyone to think that I did a thing yesterday on on disappointment, and yes, it was a disappointing day. But I hope that the spirit of that came across. What I was saying was that the people on the boat, I had a lot of people reach out to me afterwards and say, "Hey, man, I know you're in a bad place." No, I'm not. You might have chatted too much. What I was saying was that the people on the boat stepped up and did what needed to be done to really sort of put me back onto the path that I needed to be on. But I'm doing great today, Mark. I can't
Yeah.
complain.
And I think, yeah, I mean, I I didn't really get that from yesterday. Of course, we have the the background conversation. So
Sorry.
yeah, yeah. So, and like I said, you guys, when we get on stream, we might come here and there's times where me and Tommy are like, man, I just don't feel good today. I'm having a bad day. And the second we go live and you guys start typing in that chat, it's like a switch. You can see it. And I see it on Tommy's face and then I feel it in my own mind. It's like yeah, it's just really it's a strange thing if you've never experienced something like that. Um, you know, sometimes it's like when Tommy makes his bed every morning. Sometimes you just got to go do it, and then you're really going to see what it really looks like. And and you guys put that in perspective for us so many times. It just really is that way. But yeah, I mean, and I think you come with a great analogy with with the watch and going to the thrift stores and things like that, and it's definitely a good mindset to get into. To hey, listen, sometimes I might feel like I'm getting thrown away, but just like in the thumbnail, I did that on purpose with that wastebasket with our logo on it. We're catching you guys. We're catching each other. And, society or whoever it is, don't matter who it is kicked you off to the side. Well, one of us is going to be there. And it doesn't necessarily have to be me or Tommy. Most of the time, it's going to be somebody in the chat, or it can be somebody in your personal life. But what I'm saying is that there are avenues now. And I will say this, that, the stigma, in my group sessions in the outpatient program I'm in, we actually have a group of once a year that we concentrate on stigma. And because it's important, to recognize that there is a stigma in society about drug abuse, people in recovery, all the above. And I will say that from the time when I got into recovery till now, it's changed. It really has started to get a little better. I mean, there's people out there now that are starting to see it. And I keep going back to the doctors. It starts with the doctors because we all go see the doctor, right? So if the doctor has the right mindset and the doctor can see that, hey, this is actually what's happening, it starts to change society. It might take a while. We may never, well, I can just say this right now. We're never going to see a day where that stigma is completely gone. It's just not going to be. There's too much judgment in this world, and it's not going to go away. And that's when we lean on each other. That's when we do catch it. And, in this time of year, I know we're past the holidays, but it's like in my mind, when Tommy started talking about this, my stupid mind goes straight to like Christmas shows, right? And the one my mind went to was Rudolph, believe it or not. The toys on Misfit Island.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of what you feel like sometimes. They're allowing you to be here, but they've got you over here. They've got you in this spot. But what happens in that story at the end? Santa goes, picks them up, and takes them to the children that want them. We will find that. We found that here. And that's what's happening. And we're helping each other find it. And that's what's so beautiful about it. Because once that starts like that, it's a life of its own, and nothing's going to stop it. If the power goes out today, never comes back on, what we've done here is going to continue in your guys' lives. I know it will, because it will for mine. It's always, at this point, it's going to have an effect on me for the rest of my life. This is something I'll always be able to turn to and say, listen, this is me. This is how we got here. This is what we started to do, and this is what we've all done together. And it, again, when you're in recovery as long as I am, when you get a fresh perspective like that, it's so, it's the best feeling in the world. It really is. Because, again, we forget it. We really do. We really do. And it's just like Jesus and the prodigal son. No, not Jesus, but the Bible. And
yeah, I got you.
The prodigal son. It's kind of that way. It really is. We talk about the really high percentage of people that will end up passing away still doing their drug. Well, if nobody did anything at all, that number could still go higher. So if there's somebody out there that can get help from anything that we're doing, it's worth it. It really truly is. And I know it's kind of cliche, and I know that it's kind of what people try to just, say being polite. I am saying that because I actually believe it. I'm not saying that just to have something to say, something to talk about. It is the truth. If it helps one person, and the hope is to help that person, but then the next hope is that person will help somebody because of it. And I think that's kind of what goes on here. The whole movie, pay it forward and all that kind of stuff. That works. Could you imagine if this world actually did that? The whole premise behind that movie. You go do a nice thing for three people randomly, and the only thing you expect is for them to go do something nice for 3 other people. If everybody did that for a week, do you know how many people would be affected? It's amazing how big that number would grow very, very quickly. And, and unfortunately, we get wrapped up in our lives, and we go and we do this and we do that. But, yeah, I just think this is a great thing that we have to realize that, even if you're not in addiction, sometimes you can still feel like you've been thrown away. And, nobody likes that feeling. Everybody hates that feeling. And that's why we say living your best life is the best way to talk about it, because it is. It just simply is. And if we can help anybody not feel that way, we're going to. It's just the way that it is. I don't see how anybody can be any different. It's hard for me in my own mind to wrap my brain around the other side of that. I just can't.
10 years they'll do that to you.
I just can't get myself to do that. Don't get me wrong. We all have our times when we're judgmental of people. But the difference is when you recognize it, how you correct it afterwards. And, and I think that's where we're different. because we've all, I guarantee you, me and Tommy have said lots of things, probably to you guys, that might have offended you some. But you realize that it's coming just like when you guys say stuff that maybe offended me or Tommy, which is kind of hard to do, but but at the same time, we're able to recognize that, and we know that anything that's being said is being said in a manner from a good place and love. So when you keep that kind of a mindset that it's coming from a good place, you can accept mistakes a lot easier.
No question.
And that's kind of what I'm saying. But again, I don't want anybody ever to feel like they've been thrown away. So when you do, because you will, people feel that way, just know that you're not. You're not a throwaway. You never will be. You're worth it. That's one thing that we deal with. Sometimes we feel like we've done so many bad things throughout our addiction that we're not worth being saved. You know what I mean? And you got to fight that sometimes. And it's a hard thing to get through in your mind sometimes. And that's why we do the group thing, because it does help. It helps to hear other people. And what you're going to hear most likely is, hey, yeah, I felt like that before too. Matter of fact, I felt like that yesterday. That's kind of how it works. So, and I really am appreciative of Tommy and everybody else here for that reason. It's, I don't know, it's a really, really good way to look at things when you cannot get yourself out of that mindset that you're going to be thrown away. And it's such a bad thing, and all that can do is lead you down a darker path. If you stay in that mindset, you will not. It'll end bad. It comes back to that whole you start your relapse process, because that's really what that is at some level. And where you stop that is where you stop it. But yeah. So.
There's been a bunch of comments that people are saying that, and I think Niall kind of typifies what a lot of people are saying. He said, we may never walk hand in hand with the rest of society because we are a select group. We think certain ways that baffle others. I have no problem with being taboo. Sometimes I am proud of it. You know what? I get that too. There really is something to that, and it's why group works the way it does. There's definitely a rewiring of the mind. There is. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't know that there's a reason that people who get sober have a desire to help people that haven't. And part of it is because it really is such a beautiful thing when you know that you can help somebody out of the same darkness you were in. The other part of it is we're drawn toward the same people. We're drawn back, even if you're sober. You know what I mean? There's the number of people that I talk to, and I talk, that I correspond with daily, who are in recovery. That's the people that I know. And one of the reasons that I do it is because those are the people that I understand. And you make a good point, because one of the reasons that we're thrown away so quickly is we're not understood. And if that isn't proof of the things that we say all of the time, we're definitely different. We are. So you don't want to call it a disease. Different, it's just fine. We're different. We're wired differently. For that reason, we tend to make different decisions. But Mark hit on something that I think is really important, because the analogy of going and finding treasure and restoring it, I think, is a good analogy. But I think one of the places where it kind of falls short is, this thing's awesome, right? But I'm going to keep it. It's going to be here, and I'm going to put it up. And at some point I might sell it, and then someone else will keep it and they will hold it. But when one addict gets sober, the entire world changes. The reason that the cliche gets said over and over and over again, that if we can just help one person, he's right. If YouTube came along today and said, I am so tired of Tommy Scoville and Mark Wages, we're just pulling the plug on it. We're not letting these people do anything on social media ever again. They're banned for life. The earth will never be the same. And we've been doing this for 5 months. The earth will never be the same, because there are people out there right now whose lives are going to be forever and dramatically changed. And that some people call it chaos theory, some people call it the butterfly effect, but the paradox of when you change one thing, right, all of history becomes changed. Well, when you get one person sober, the number of lives that they touch, right, the number of people whose lives are touched differently now because I am sober is absolutely remarkable. And every single time we are able to to help another person, then those tentacles go out so far. And the great thing, people, is they go out for generations. There's an inscription on the back of this watch that has a man's initials, right? It was given as a gift in 1931. Okay. How many generations has that been since then? Because every 7 years is a new generation. Well, there are kids not born. There are grandkids not born whose lives are going to be different because great grandma got saved, right? They think I'm raising my hand again. There are lives that are going to be affected by this who will never ever know what the lifeboat is. They'll never hear the story of how dad got sober, or maybe they will, but it matters not. What matters is that we continually walk with ourselves hand in hand, right? It's far more important that we take each other's hands than it is society's. I don't think society will ever fully embrace addicts. They're getting better. They are. And the reason they're getting better is because it is now ubiquitous. It's everywhere. I don't care if you live in Westchester County or if you live in West Virginia. There's no difference, right? Nowadays, every single family in every single town in this country has been dramatically affected by drug addiction and alcoholism and the whole shooting match. And it's, from a societal standpoint, it's not getting better, it's getting worse. So
well, it's like that billboard I talk about, right, billboard here in my town, and it was nothing but a bunch of different people in their work uniforms, whatever that work was, from office managers down to street crew and just all those. And at the bottom, it didn't even say it real big, which is why I think the billboard was so powerful to me. At the bottom, it says, "Pick out the opiate addict." Right. You can't, because and let me say this too. There were doctors on that billboard.
Sure.
Pharmacists on that billboard. There were lawyers. I mean,
cops.
It does not matter. This thing has no boundaries, no breaks, no nothing. It touches
it's not
everybody
prejudice.
Every day. And you hit on something that I was actually thinking about, was the whole, when you help somebody, you don't really realize exactly how many more people it's going to affect. And, this actually helps me get through some of the tough times, because if that happens, I've trained myself to, hey, listen, I helped this one person. Let me sit down and think about that for a minute. And then, because I've helped people here in my own personal life before get some help, and now they have kids. And I sit back and I look at those kids and I think, that kid was a baby when I got this person some help. Could you imagine what that baby would have had to go through as it grew up if I had sat my butt on the couch and didn't do anything and just refused to not help? Even when it was right in my face, those kinds of things. That happens a lot. Let's face it, sometimes we get embarrassed, sometimes we don't have the courage just to step out. And everybody's at a different level when it comes to that. So I'm not saying anything bad about people. I'm just saying, when you get yourself to the point where you can actually help somebody and you're going through a rough time yourself, maybe fighting some bad thoughts or whatever, sit down, think about that person for a second, and then look at the people around them, because they're touching those people now. And what that could look like. Now, we couldn't know the future or anything like that. I'm not claiming anything like that. But the chances of a baby that growing up like that is a lot less if you get the parents some help. You see what I'm saying? So it does. It's like, well, I guess it's kind of like an Amway tree. You guys remember Amway? It just,
sure.
You wouldn't believe how fast that grows, guys. It's amazing how the mathematics work on stuff like that. You help one person, they go help two. Then that 2 is helping 4, and that 4 is helping 16, and it grows so fast.
The insane thing, and when you say we can't see in the future, it's the truth. But I got a video sent to me recently, and it doesn't matter the names or anything, but there's an addict who is addicted to opiates, and this addict was invited into a home on the premise of they were going to talk to the boat. They were going to be willing to talk about sobriety and this and that. What this addict wanted was the opportunity to get off of the street for a moment. And they came in and said, hey, let me talk to him in the bathroom. I don't want anyone to listen to this. And they went and fixed in the bathroom. And when this person came out, the parent, now this is a grown woman, but the parent filmed her. And you want to talk about the most heart-wrenching video that you've ever seen in your life. They sent it to me, and I prayed instantly. And it was a 20-second prayer for this person, and it was a 1-minute prayer for me, because I had never, it was so depressing. There was a child in the scene talking to his mother, who was nodding out like this and falling down, and the child was saying, please just go lay down and sleep this off. And that's the future, people. I mean, honestly, and Niall said the greatest communication you're ever going to have are 2 addicts, because the truth is, an addict will allow another addict to be honest with them, and they will never allow that from somebody else. If somebody who has not been there, done that, walked a mile in your shoes, been in the same boat, says, hey, you need help, yeah, there's something about that always makes us arch our back, right? Get that feeling that, oh man, I'm not listening to this, instantly. But there's something about an addict saying, hey, brother, I know you you need help. Look at you. And that kind of honesty, that's what Niall said, that, the honesty is almost brutal, and it is accepted we are a different crew. We really are. We're wired differently. There's nothing more beautiful than the soul of someone saved. I mean this, 100%. The boat is proof of that. The amount of caring and the amount of loving, you don't find this other places. When people say, hey, we're just as good as everyone else in society, we're better in so many ways. We don't, once you get out of that life, the one thing that seems to die in recovery is judgment. We really are the least judgmental people on the planet. And people that have never been there have it in unbelievable amounts. Their ability to judge people who they know nothing about, and they've never felt that pain or walked a mile in those shoes. Addicts don't judge anybody. It's one of the ways that I can usually spot someone who's actually in recovery. Like, you hear from people all the time. And folks, if you don't think I'm corresponding right now with 10 people who are telling me that they're sober and they're getting high every day, then you don't realize what me and Mark do. Okay. At any given time, there are 10 people that email me every single day to tell me that they're sober, and they're not. And the easiest way, I promise you, the easiest way to tell that they're not is they've always got something to say about someone else's addiction. Always. They'll say, you know what, I haven't used in such and such, but so-and-so relapsed, right? I can always go, oh, he's getting high. I guarantee he's getting high, because the people in recovery don't do that.
Nope.
Plain and simple. They don't. I mean,
the judgment's gone.
The judgment is gone.
Yeah. Because we've seen it. We know it. We've talked about this a bunch here. We can spot somebody that's using a half mile down the road with our eyes closed.
Right. I mean, don't even need to be in the same room.
We'll be out there like a freaking bloodhound with our nose in the air going, yep, they're doing smack down there on the corner of 12th and whatever. I mean, honestly, I know I'm making a joke with that, but it's the truth. We see it. And that's why, when you get so good in your life and your addiction that you become the best liar that's ever walked the face of the earth, do you not think that you're going to not notice a liar when you come out of that life? That mindset, you've already learned that skill. It's there. You're not going to miss it. So and the majority of the reason why you know is because you've done the same thing. You've done the exact same thing they're doing at that moment. You've done it. You thought you were pulling the wool over somebody's eyes. Thanks for playing. I can't tell you how embarrassed I was the first time I had to walk into my pharmacy after my addiction, because I started to remember what I said to these people. And it's like, they knew I was a liar.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was
Yep.
so, it was like, oh my gosh. It's like I almost melted. Like, you start thinking about the things you said and done. And I'm saying this because you don't know how good you can be unless you realize how bad you were. And that's where we've gotten, and it's a growing process, guys. It won't happen overnight. Okay. It just won't. So, and something else I do want to just point out before we get off stream, because I know it's getting time, that those of us that are addicts and we got people around us, please give your family members and your loved ones a break. Give them the time that they need to understand where you're coming from. I know it's hard to sit there and listen to somebody just be like, bah, 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 bah. And I'm not telling you to assert yourself in those positions. We've tried to give people tools on how to deal with that. And sometimes you do have to walk away. But remember to walk back. Okay? Don't just walk away and then just drop it. No. Nothing's solved by doing that. So you have to go back. You have to get your mind right again, because you might have got mad or hurt or whatever. My own mother did this to me, and I've talked about this, right? And I'm not going to go into that story, but it really does put it in perspective when you finally, that bell goes off in your head, like, oh my gosh, I sat here and I did my drug of choice for 10 years, but I expect my family just to automatically understand what I'm going through in 30 minutes. It ain't going to happen. So you got to give them the time that you needed yourself. You have to allow that. And for especially people that you love, I gave my wife so much room there because I knew I had done so many things that only time was going to be able to help that. So I sat there and I just swallowed crow for probably 3 or 4 years, to be honest. I would allow her to ask me questions that I would not allow another person on this planet to even utter to me. You know what I mean? And hold me to a level of accountability that I couldn't even hold myself to. What I'm saying is these, especially your loved ones, they need that time. They have to, and they'll come around to it. I promise. They really will. And it's a different time frame for everybody. But if they see you, this is the thing. You can't tell them. You have to show them over and over and over again. The words that come out of your mouth, it ain't going to help. Not most of the time. They'll get the gist of it. But after you say it, you have to follow through with it. If you don't, that's just going to take their mind and go straight to the worst thing again. And, what I'm saying is, guys, it'll be better off if you guys just really do give people that you love all the time that they need. Honestly. And it could be years sometimes. Really can.
And
just work
your
forward.
key, answer questions and do it without being offended, because there are so many questions that they're going to have. Think of all of the stuff that we've done that created those questions. I sat down once with my dad and he asked me questions for probably 3 hours. And it was stuff like, he'd say, do you remember that time you asked me to wire you $900 for such and such? Was that the truth? No. And at the start of it, I said to him, don't ask me to answer any question that you don't really want to know the answer to. And I remember him saying, did you rob more than one bank? Because as far as he knew, I had been, arrested and convicted of one bank. And I could tell you this because the deal was, I'm cool. But I said, no, I robbed more than one bank. And we went through this for the longest period of time. And I watched him just go through it. But by the end of it, he was laughing, because I think that, there's something liberating about not being in the dark and feeling like, when everything comes into the light, things were always better. But Mark's right. You got to give them all kinds of time. You got to give them all kinds of answers, and you got to give them all kinds of respect, because if you want to have a relationship again, there are individuals for whom maybe that's not something that you want to do. I'm a firm believer that the better you can build a bridge back, you're always going to be better because of it. But that's a personal opinion. That's one you'll have to answer yourself.
When I went into rehab, my wife looked at me. Okay, this is before we were saying goodbyes and all that. And she said, listen, I'm going to ask you all the questions right now. I'm going to forgive everything you say to me right now. So that point right there, you let it all out. Any bad thing that you did, because you've got that forgiveness at that point. There's no sense in trying to hold on to it. And I know your first reaction is to lie about it. Mine was. And it took me a minute, but I got it all out. So, and the other thing I would say, dealing with all the stuff that we deal with, don't ask your family members a question you don't want the answer to. If you don't want to hear that answer, don't ask it. I'm just saying, because there are questions. Well, how do you feel about me now? Well, if you're going to ask them that question, be ready for the response. Okay? Because it might not be exactly what you want to hear, but it might be exactly what you need to hear. So that's kind of what I'm saying. Anyway.
Well, and there, I can see that the chat is now once again discussing what people wear underneath their pants, and that's almost always a pretty good time to wrap this up. People, I am Captain Tommy Scovel. Really appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight. Between now and tomorrow morning, when we all meet again, reach out and try to save somebody. And you know what? Take a look at them. Get a good look at them. They're probably worth restoring. On the other side of the glass,
Mark Wages.
All right, people, have a good evening.